The big question, will inflation continue to rise in 2022? Hey folks, this is Wayne Turner, and today we're going to talk about inflation. How is it going to make a difference? Will it keep going for 2022? And how, most importantly, it's going to affect you, the consumer. Now, back in October 2021, we've seen the largest consumer increase in more than 30 years. It was 6.2% increase. So in other words, what it's costing consumers increased 6.2%. Now, this time last year, gas prices were 59% lower. So fuel prices to fill up at the pump are 59% higher today than they were this time last year. Take a vehicle for an example. Who would have thought that a year ago, the average car, or today, the average vehicle, the average used vehicle, by the way, the average used vehicle is up 26% from this time last year. And of course, with real estate, we're seeing, many cities are seeing property values increase in double digits across the country. And of course, added to that, the supply of homes that have just absolutely, we've seen take unprecedented number of homes being placed on the market. Take Bellevue, Washington. That's a suburb of Seattle, Washington. They've seen 23.6% increase in property values year over year. Look at Pembroke, Florida. Pembroke, Florida, 22.4% in literally year over year. Now, some cities aren't seeing such a double digits, but take New Orleans, Louisiana, for example. New Orleans, Louisiana, property values have increased 9.5% from literally a 12-month period of time. Now, that's not a crazy high compared to the 22, 24, 23%, but it's still a historical increase in property values for the New Orleans, Louisiana market. But look, it doesn't stop with just gas, cars, houses. Consumers are seeing it with everything from consumer goods such as clothes, food. The smallest of items are higher today than they were this time last year. Now, inflation in its most simplest basic form comes from the word inflate. But what also comes with inflate as we increase is deflate. It creates a deflation in the dollar. And that, my friend, that is where it hits where it counts. It's money, 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 money.
Money talks.
Sure, you can sell your car for 10, 15, 20% more than what you bought the car for. Same thing with real estate. You can sell your house for 20% more than what you bought it for, or 20% more than what it was for a year ago. Let's just say you bought it for $100,000 5 years ago, and now you're turning around and selling it. There's people that bought houses 10, 12 years ago that literally are making $500,000 on their home just because of this crazy inflation in 2021. Now, that's not a bad thing. There's nothing wrong with that. If you can sell it, make a profit, at the end of the day, it's all in what brings you happiness. Now, you also have to consider that, okay, if I sell something for 20% or 25% more than what I could sell it for a year ago, you may think, well, look, I can sell it, make a profit. I can sell it and turn some cash here. But if you're going to have to buy another car or another house, then you're kind of on that same spectrum. So you're selling, now the person that's selling you are thinking, well, I made good money off of that. But at the end of the day, I just tell people, look, it's whatever brings you happiness. So how is all of this tracked? How is all of this information kept up with? And listen, if you're watching this, most of you have heard of the Consumer Price Index. That's literally where you take into account, that I'll get it out in a second. 93% of the consumer goods purchased consumers. So 93% of the American population, what do they purchase? That's called the Consumer Price Index. Now, you would think that the Federal Reserve would use the Consumer Price Index, right? Nope. That's not what they use at all. They use the PCE, the Personal Consumer Expenditures. Now, here's the difference. You're thinking, what's the difference between the Consumer Price Index and the Personal Consumer Expenditures? Here's the difference. With the housing market, with what consumers spend on housing, right? With the PCE, Personal Consumer Expenditure, go with me here, they only take into account that 22% of consumers' income is used for housing. In all actuality, 40 to 45% of consumers' income is used for housing. So you can see how if the Federal Reserve is using PCE, not the Consumer Price Index, you can see how it can be miscued, in my personal opinion, by 50+%, because they're only taking into account that what a consumer makes in their income, only 22% of their income is spent on housing. When that's not factual, that's not the truth. The actual numbers are more like 40 to 45, 46% of consumers' income goes towards housing. So what creates inflation? Two things. It works in two ways. Really simple. Number one, we buy things. We buy things, the demand goes up, prices go up. Two, the supply goes down. The consumption remains the same. So you have supply that is going down and consumers are purchasing. That gives an impression that, well, the market must be crazy. Everybody's buying that item. And it's not so much as the market's crazy. The way that they're purchasing those items, whether it's a car, house, clothes, whatever it may be, renting apartments, it may not be that supply, that demand is increased, but the supply has decreased. So in other words, people aren't putting homes on the market. They're not selling cars. We don't have the goods. They're still on the boat. We don't have that. So therefore, it creates that impression that, well, supply and demand, there's not enough on the market. Which leads me to real estate. Let's look at houses, because that's a big one. Housing's really big right now, and a lot of people, prices are through the roof, and it's kind of crazy. And it's almost, people say, well, golly, houses are selling so fast. I mean, we put a house on the market here in the metro New Orleans area. Literally, the average days on the market is like 18, 19 days. And that's most cities across the country. But it's not so much as that there's such a strong demand for houses. Houses. What is a housey? What is a housey? I don't know. It's not such that there's such a strong demand for houses as it is the physical homes on the market for sale are 80% in many cities, including Metro New Orleans, 80% less than what it was 12 to 18 months ago. So in a case like that, you can have buyers consuming houses, purchasing homes at a rate literally lower than they have in the last 2 to 3 years. But if the actual inventory, the homes available for sale, is down by 80%, it's going to give an impression that, well, the market's crazy and everybody's buying houses. And it's not so much as it's changed so much as everybody wants to buy a house. People want to still buy homes. It's just the inventory is low. And either way, it's going to push the values up. Inventory's low, it's going to push the values up. Inventory is low because consumption, it's going to push the values up. But why and how does it stop? How does it slow down? How does it level off? Well, in my personal opinion, it's a slow, gradual process by which people realize how affordable it can be. Now, don't get me wrong, as the years progress, things go up in value, things go down, people are making more money, people working more, people working less. It's just this huge spin, if you will. But what I find is that the average consumer doesn't realize how affordable something such as a house can be. And it's not just a house, it can be cars, boats, motorhomes, or whatever that. I'm just fascinated. We meet with so many people on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, and we share with them what their payment's going to be on a $200,000 house, $300,000 house, $500,000 home, $600,000 home. And listen, it's not just that first-time home buyer home. These are people that literally that are high income, upper tier, upper middle class, many wealthy people. And when we share with them what their payment's going to be, they're shocked. They're like, wow, I just thought it would be so much more. Because the average person, until they're ready to make that purchase, they don't sit down and try to figure out their payment. It's weird that, years ago, I remember there used to be almost like a gatekeeper, if you will. I remember when I first got into the real estate business, we had a calculator called an HP12C. Well, that calculator was a financial calculator that I used to factor in to figure up a payment like that. But 25 years ago, there wasn't anything like that. You had to physically go buy the calculator, learn how to use the thing. It came with a book that thick, and it was a financial calculator, right? Well, today you can Google that. You can Google as we speak. When you stop watching this video, and wait till you stop watching the video, but simply just go to car payment calculator, mortgage calculator. You can literally figure out a payment on a car, a boat, big ticket item house in about 3 seconds, and where we used to not have that. So that's what I always tell people. Look at how affordable it truly is to purchase large ticket items now. That's exactly what people are doing. That's exactly what people, even though I'm still meeting with people and they're going, wow, I never realized it would be that affordable. That is pretty affordable. I didn't realize that. It's like 3.25% over 30 years, or purchasing a vehicle at 4 or 5% over 5, 6 years. That payment is much lower. Now, here's another thing that's happened. This is part of the whole inflation thing, is things get affordable. Things are more affordable because the payment, the cost of the money. Let's just call it what it is. It's the cost of the money. The cost of the money goes down when the cost of the money goes down and people realize that it's pretty affordable for them based on their income and their demographic and what they're doing, they're bringing in, then they can purchase more items. They can purchase bigger items. Well, what does that do? It increases the demand, like I said a minute ago. So once it increases the demand, if you're selling that product, that whatever it may be, then you can increase it just a little bit, just a little bit, just a little bit, just a little bit. Next thing you know, you're like, wow, we're seeing double-digit increases in consumer goods. Now, to slow all of this down, you have to slow consumer consumption. And a lot of that comes with the simple supply. I mean, it's no secret that there's ships sitting off the coast of the United States, New York, all these ports, California, Alabama, Louisiana. You get it. And they need to be offloaded. And you're thinking, why? Why is that? Why are ships sitting there and they can't be offloaded? Well, there's no secret. Much of all of this started with the pandemic. Manufacturing of goods around the world was put on pause, if you will. It just stopped. Now, that stopping created a log jam. Now, businesses started firing back up. Manufacturers started coming back alive. People started going back to work, but they did so in different phases. Different parts of the world started back to work. And still to this day, some places are more productive. Some places are 100%. Some places are not. Even in the United States, some places have businesses that are open, and some places are not. I just took a trip to Nashville, Tennessee, and you couldn't go inside some stores. I'm here in New Orleans, Louisiana, and you could go inside those same stores that were a franchise store, which leads to the production consumption of goods and services at a different pace. Now listen, we all remember the toilet paper craze. I don't know what it was, but I guess people were afraid to run out, which caused a crazy craze. And in doing so, toilet paper went up. Now the second wave of producing goods and services, once again, we have to increase the supply. We have to increase the supply. So how do we do that? We got to get people back to work. If we get people back to work, it's going to increase the supply. But people have to get back to work. I can tell you a quick story. I had an acquaintance of mine who's an electrician, 2 kids, electrician. He was receiving $1,000 a week, $4,000 a month to stay at home. And that was literally, to say 246, that was $800 a month more than if he were getting up and going to work to be an electrician. So for 6 months, he stayed at home and made $800 more per month to stay at home with his kids, quality time with family, making $800 more each month. Multiply that times 6. You're with me. But let's talk about the big one. The big one that's kind of the buzzword, and that's increasing the cost of money. Let's just call it what it is, increasing the cost of the money. It's called raising interest rates. And as I just alluded to, the Federal Reserve did meet, and they are going to be raising the rates more than likely 3 times over the next year into 2022. And it's really simple. You know, I used to tell people we're just kind of like cattle. They just, we get herded around, and I don't mean to offend anybody by saying that, but it's almost like if the government wants us to move in a specific direction, they can do so. And it's really simple because all they have to do is touch our pocketbooks. It's proven, it's seen. You look at the graphs, the charts throughout the histories in the last 30, 40 years. If they want us to move one direction or not move one direction, if they want us to spend and not spend, they simply raise the rates. Now, it's not going to be an all bad thing because once we see those rates increase, we'll be able to see more money that we could be making potentially on our savings accounts and that sort of thing. And listen, you have to take into consideration, if an interest rate increases, and I personally, my prediction for what it's worth, and watching all this, tracking all this, reading, studying, watching, learning, I don't think it's going to be over 4.25%. I think 4.25% this time last year, December 2022, I don't think it'll be that, but it will increase. That said, even though it's going to increase, it's still not a bad rate. And people say, oh, well, you're selling a product, you're selling houses, yes, that's right, I am. But you also have to consider, man, we all remember interest rates. If you're watching this and you got so much as one gray in your beard or your head or whatever, you remember the stories that people told about double digits back in the 70s and 80s. And even 25 years ago, interest rates were 8.25%. Now listen, if you're buying a $200,000 house at 8% today, you're talking about $1,850, $1,900 a month. Buy that same house today at $200,000 at 3.25%, you're $1,200. That was 25 years ago. But look, to sum it all up, it's really simple. Things go up in value because of supply and demand, and not always is that demand crazy as it is the supply has lowered, which creates a false impression that people are consuming a lot of goods. This video, like the next one that we're going to come out, where the feds and all of this is just great information that I feel that consumers need to know, and we're sharing this with you. So if you like our information, give us a thumbs up, click the little like button, like and subscribe to our channel, and leave us a comment. If there's anything you want to know more information on related to housing, the economy, and real estate, we'd love to help. Until next time, make it a great day.